Augustine, one of the things that animates the Confessions is the relationship between Augustine and his mother Monica. Let me also say right up the front that we will not refer to him as Saint Augustine or Saint Monica. Right? That is a religious designation. We will refer to him as his secular, because our interest is not so much in his confessional, but in his work as a writer. Okay? So it's Augustine. Okay. Just so that we're all on the same page. So, and this is one of many mother and child relationships that we've experienced so far, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Gilgamesh and Ninsun, right? Thetis and Achilles, right? Penelope and Telemachus, Rebecca and Jacob and Esau, Bathsheba and Benjamin, or Solomon, Agrippina and Nero. These are really Venus and Aeneas, right? These are amazing relationships that we're going to explore through this. So Monica and Augustine is one of those really interesting things, and it will, it sort of casts light, I think, because we all experience this relationship in some form. Okay, Rourke.
Okay, so as the professor just stated, our topic is the relationship between Augustine, his mother Monica, and how that dynamic ties into characters like Gilgamesh, Ninsun, Achilles, Thetis, all the other ones that he stated. And so, it kind of becomes very apparent that his mother is very devout Catholic, whereas his father is kind of this pagan figure. And I don't know, I thought that kind of tied in, where a lot of the times you have this very faithful mother figure who's very deeply tied with a lot of kind of pantheon, and just theistic figures. So that's definitely something I saw, just as far as the maternal figure being kind of associated with God. Anyone else kind of saw that? I mean, it's actually there, but
I saw in book one a parallel between Monica and Augustine and Jesus and Mary, particularly in section 17. It says, "I came from my mother's womb, she greatly put trust in you. My physical mother was distraught with a pure heart and faith in you. She even more lovingly travailed and labored for my eternal salvation." And then later it says, "She anxiously labored to convince me that you, my God, were my father rather than me," referring to the physical father. And in this endeavor, you helped her to gain victory over her husband. And in the story of Jesus and Mary, there wasn't a physical father, but rather God. And so Augustine's father's lack of belief kind of invalidated his status as a father, which I think made the familial relationship in this book interesting.
There's a quote that I thought particularly highlighted like the difference between his mother and father on page 28, where I guess are these chapters or sections?
Okay, so it's books and chapters.
Okay, so then chapter 8, he says, "Both of them, as I realized, were very ambitious for me. My father, because he hardly gave a thought to you at all, you being God, and his ambitions for me were concerned with mere vanities. My mother, because she thought it would do no harm and would be a help to set me on the way towards you if I studied the traditional pattern of literary education." So his education is like important to both his parents, but his mother obviously tried to propel him towards God as well, which he was thankful for later, but I don't know that he was thankful for in his adolescence necessarily.
One thing I found interesting was kind of the role of the woman and like how much authority a mother has. In book 2, chapter 7, he said her concern, blah, 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 was that I should not fall into fornication, and above all that, I should not commit adultery with someone else's wife. These warnings seem to me womanish advice where I would have blushed to take the least notice of. So he's kind of just like brushing it off as like, oh, that's just a woman like speaking. But then the difference between that and in book 1, chapter 17, where he says, so I was already a believer, as were my mother and the entire household, except for my father alone. Though he had not yet come to faith, he did not obstruct my right to follow my mother's devotion so as to prevent me believing in Christ. So even though like he kind of brushes her advice off as womanish, like his father just lets like his mother determine his religion, which is kind of a big deal. Like usually, like in nowadays society, I would say that's something that's kind of, at least in my family, like was something that was very debated and they worked on it together. But like here, he just lets the mother decide, which is interesting.
And I think that we've read almost all of that section, like the last paragraph in that section, book 1, chapter 17. But what I thought was most important that we haven't said yet is he called his mother the moral superior. I just think that's a really amazing moment where he uses the word superior to talk about a woman. And then 2, even though we were talking about his education, later on in book 3, chapter 7, he says that his education was bought with his mother's financial support. So there's like a duality there, I think, between the moral superiority she has and then the way that she cares for him also, like just not, well, obviously physically, but education-wise, it seems like she was always looking for the best for him, which is great. And yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Brooke?
Yes.
I also want to continue this trend of like the chapter 2 in his adolescence, and I'd like to talk about, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. We have book 2, chapter 6, and he says, but in my mother's heart you had already begun your temple and the beginning of your holy habitation. And then you have right below that, chapter 7, it says, my mother, your faithful servant. So we kind of see this trend of like God working through his mother. And I kind of saw that as a little bit of a parallel to Aeneas and Venus, because although it's not like concept of this Christian god, it's Jupiter. Jupiter still works through Venus a little bit to kind of guide and direct Aeneas. I thought that was interesting.
It's interesting to see the difference between God working through his mother, who's a human, and
Right.
when other gods are the parent.
Yeah. It kind of makes it seem like almost like his mother is a divine figure almost, whereas his dad's just like this simple mortal. It's kind of just an interesting dynamic between the two.
Venus uses Cupid. It could be the same way that God is using Monica to get to Augustine, at least in his mind. It could be.
I don't know if anyone else sees this, but I definitely saw kind of the parallels there, at least between kind of Mary's relationship with Jesus and everything else as well. You know, where she's kind of the primary actor as opposed to the father. You know, as far as how God is concerned.
But I would also argue that when a woman is like caring for her son in this way, it's always as a proxy for God. Whereas when we see like male figures, I guess it's like just them. But also Monica's role as well is very, she doesn't directly influence and try and force him. In book 3, chapter 20, during this time, this chased about the silver widow, the one of the kind you love, already cheered by hope, but no less constant in prayer and weeping, never ceased her hours of prayer to lament about me to you. So that's her way of having power over her son's life, not by directly telling him what to do, like Agrippina, or is that how you say it? She killed her husband, right, to direct Nero's life, whereas Monica is just, it's totally different. It's almost like ceding control and ceding power in order to influence his life.
So you said like she's not directly influencing his life, she's kind of just like directing him.
We're influencing it in a different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Not as direct,
It's
Okay.
telling him what to do and like rearranging his
And
life.
we saw that in, I don't know if it was chapter 3 or chapter 2, but there was an instance, I think, in his adolescence where he was like a teenager or something, and she was like directing him, I guess, more directly, if that makes sense. And then we saw that she kind of just like let him go on his own path. I can't pick out the direct passage, but I think that's a good example of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I think maybe a good word is like she's less manipulative.
Yeah.
She's still influential and directive, but she doesn't make things happen as much, you know?
Not a tiger mom.
An interesting connection I thought here was also between Monica and Thetis with Achilles, and how, well, not even really connection, but just comparing the two. How Achilles, with their first encounter with Thetis, is when Achilles is angered by Agamemnon after the whole of him breaking the scepter at the beginning of the Iliad, and he goes to Thetis and is mourning to her and saying, "Bring me justice. Like, go to Jupiter and tell him about the favor he owes you, and like let the Greeks die until like they're gonna beg for you back." And so I feel like it's sufficient enough. And there's one or two other times where he mourns to Thetis as well, and she goes and talks to the gods again, or tries to intervene on his behalf, and she's literally, like we've been talking about, like just the prophecy. Like she's, except in this way, instead of like with Aeneas and Venus, in which Jupiter is going to Venus every now and then, or at least is talking to her about Aeneas' fate. It's reversed, and like the mortal is going to, like the demigod is going to the goddess and saying, "Go to your superior authority and help me with this," and which is exactly like opposite of what Augustine's doing here. He's trying to just completely get rid of the bothersome behavior that Monica has involved in his life. So that was just an interesting point to look at.
Doesn't Ninsun like try to warn Gilgamesh from pursuing Humbaba, or am I remembering that correctly? She does. When I think India brought it up, when or was it? No, you brought it up. Sorry, you brought it up where Monica is trying to warn Augustine from like pursuing all like the sexual like trials that he does in his younger years, and he does anyways. And I can see the relating, but I feel like Monica gives up faster than Ninsun did in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I think that eventually, I mean, Augustine eventually like came about to like religiously where she wanted him to, but I don't think it worked as well for Ninsun with Gilgamesh, because I don't think that. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I think there are also two different relationships between them in Confessions. There's when he was younger, and there's now. And that quote that I read earlier in book 2, chapter 7, where he says, "These warnings seem to me womanish advice." That is like his old relationship with her. And then when he goes on and says, "But they were your warnings, and I did not realize it. I believed you were silent, and it was only she who was speaking when you were speaking to me through her." Then now their relationship is, he kind of reveres her as like this like holy woman who has done right by God.
See, but it's not her he reveres. It's like her speaking the word of God, which is what bothers me about this. Like, he has no respect for her as a person, but rather as like a purveyor of God's word.
I think he respects her respect for God.
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I mean, I think he really loves his mother.
Yeah.
very much. And, I mean, like we have to keep in mind, like he's trying to talk to this confession to God, and he's thanking God for doing this service for him through his mother. And, but there's a part, and I was trying to find it earlier, where he talks about how he knows there's educated women out there, but his mom really wasn't educated, I think is what he said, if that's correct. And he still talks about like how much he loves her there, and also in the part where we talked about how she never ceased her hours of prayer to learn that about me to you, section 20 in or chapter 20, book 3. And before that, he talks about, like in that sentence, he says, during this time, this chaste, devout, and sober widow, one of the kind you love, already cheered by hope, but no less content, constant in prayer and weeping. So I mean, he's really complimentary towards her, and expresses that kind of love, but he's doing it in a way in which he's trying to praise God simultaneously. And so, whether or not that overshadows his compliments and views toward his mother at this point, I think is directly in the context of him talking to God and trying to elevate that aspect.
I guess something I just want to say is like, it's easy to look at it and say, oh, because of her, that he's only loving what his mother loves, or like only loving God and only loving his mother because his mother loves God. But I feel like in a lot of our relationships, and I don't mean to kind of go off on this, but like, who are we except what we like love, and like, you know what I mean, and what we respect. I don't know. That's all I wanted to say. Well, you know, like it can be anything. It doesn't have to be God. And the things that I like about other people are a lot of the time like, I mean, things that are similar to what I like. And I don't know, just like it can be anything. It doesn't have to be like that we have a similar religion, but it could be like that we like a similar. Yeah, I know that's a little bit different and kind of off, and I didn't really develop that before I said it. But that's all I wanted to say.
That's a perfectly good thing to say. I mean, as you know, David Foster Wallace mentioned in his speech, we all worship something. Okay, we all have gods, right? You will see that he has a very ambivalent relationship with his mother, as I think we probably all do, right? I mean, means he, he likes her and respects her and loves her and finds her annoying and insufferable and weak and uneducated in other respects. I mean, this is not an easy, this is a very three-dimensional, deep relationship that he has with her. It's not good, bad, it is complex, right? And in that respect, it mirrors and reflects the relationship that we have with our own parents and our own friends. You know, some of them are pretty simple, but some of them are very deeply complex. And that we love some things about our parents, but we don't like other things about our parents. And imagine what it's like for someone of such intellectual prodigiousness. I mean, this man he is a genius, and he is sprinting ahead in his own intellectual development and his own things. And his mom, I mean, how would you feel if your mom moved to Memphis and got an apartment just down the street here? And every day you go to lunch, there she is over in the corner praying for you to live a better life.
That would not be cool.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Augustine is writing, he's in his 40s. And he has gone through this incredible, so imagine where he has come. He is Bishop of Hippo now. I mean, he is one of the leading intellectuals and religious figures in Northern Africa. And he's in his mid-40s. And all the territory that he's traversed is enormous, right? And he's looking back on his life, and he's trying to trace those influences and trying to just make sense of it. Just really quickly, one thing. Again, I think that you mentioned, I think it was Megan on this lovely first thing about the father of Jesus. This is still contested. Who is the father of Jesus? I mean, I think we have a tendency to think that this is theologically and doctrinally established, but it's not, okay? And even in the Gospels that you read, it's not entirely clear who the father of Jesus is, or who God is, for that matter, or what is the relationship between Jesus and God. Augustine, I mean, is one of these people trying to figure that out. So we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you.